What's up, YouTube? This is Deven with Bike Mag, and I'm also here with the Stinner Romero LT. Pretty cool bicycle, I'm being honest. I saw this originally at Made in 2025. Stinner was kind of like right after you walk into Zidell Yards, right there on the left. They had this bike on display. I guess they finished it like right before they showed up. So it was like early production, not even production, still prototype at that point. And I've been really excited to see it come to life. And here it is, it's alive. So two flavors for the Romero. There's the MT and the LT, which is this. The MT is a 150, 130, or 140 in the rear. The LT is long travel, so 170 front, 150 or 160 in the rear, depending on the stroke of shock. A 65 millimeter stroke shock gets you 160, whereas a 60 millimeter stroke shock will get you 150. This is 29 front and rear as you see it. They do have different dropouts, which will allow you to run a mullet setup, and that does shorten the chainstay down to 435 from 445, which is what it's at now. It's a steel front triangle, alloy rear triangle. Uses the Stinner Select tubing, which is like a Velospec hardened steel, paired to a 60-61 rear end with like 70-75 alloy hardware. There are some 3D printed bits and bobs to make it all come together. But yeah, it's pretty sick. A pretty centered climbing position with those longer chainstays. It does feel really good going uphill, surprisingly. I was expecting it to be kind of a slog up the hill and a lot of fun down the hill. So the climbing position is pretty good. Lots of grip on the rear wheel. Suspension firms up quite a bit. Find the rhythm, find the rhyme. It's bobsled time. And it gets steeper. Kind of wants to wander. Gotta work for it. Like all good things in life. Honestly climbs really well for what it is. Pretty heavy, long travel, enduro bike. Sheesh. I've pedaled shorter travel bikes that are lighter and they go uphill worse than this. Once you hit that like firm switch on the X2, it climbs better than you'd expect for a 170, 160 bike. It's not light by any means. It's very much, like the word that comes to mind is utilitarian. It's a metal bike with a lot of travel that uses a surprisingly complex suspension design. So there's a lot going on, which makes it heavy. But it doesn't feel terribly heavy. When you're riding it, when you're climbing it, descending it, like it definitely feels like a enduro bike. I've pedaled a lot of enduro bikes in my years riding bicycles, and it's right on trend with other bikes in this travel category, if not slightly more efficient uphill. 64 point something degree head tube angle, so not crazy slack. It does tend to kind of like wag and wander a little bit when the when the climbs get steeper, but the trade-off is descends really well. Trails here in Boise are pretty flat, pretty pedally, and it's not necessarily ideal for around here, but I've still been having a ton of fun on it. Wheel set is the Stinner in-house component brand Stoic. So they're carbon hoops laced to DT Swiss 350 hubs. I'm gonna mess around with different wheel combos, but so far these wheels are fine. I feel like a carbon wheel set, if you're not noticing it while you're riding it, that's a good thing. It's full external cable routing until you get to the junction here, of which there is internal routing for a dropper post, but shifter, brake, that is all externally routed with some little like alloy clamps and that screw onto bosses. But you're in a very central climbing position. There's not a lot of like loss of pedaling efficiency. Once you kind of get that momentum going, it's definitely a bike that wants to work with the momentum it already has. So it's not necessarily, I found that I'm not at a super high cadence all the time. It doesn't love that. The suspension wants to move a little bit, even with the lockout on. So a lower cadence kind of like, it's a Cummins, like it's low RPM and it'll get you to the top. I think because of the steel and alloy like construction, it's has unique ride characteristics for sure. If you've ever ridden a steel road bike or a steel hardtail or something, there is this kind of organic sway and snap to that material, and this definitely plays into that, but with that stiffer alloy rear end, it doesn't take it to the extremes, and it just feels really I don't know, kind of malleable on the trail, like in cornering, and like the lateral forces feel really good. So like snapping in and out of corners, kind of flicking it around and making that material work in the way that it is designed is really fun. It's not light. I haven't weighed it, but it's definitely not a light bike. I didn't expect it to be a light bike, but it still is surprising in the way that it climbs and feels on the trail. The routing for the rear derailleur, that's the only thing that I have found any sort of issue with. Because it's all external, I've had a few instances where the shift cable that is run down the down tube on the right side of the seat tube down along the chainstay, it kind of like moved to the outboard side of the linkage towards the crankset, and I've had a couple of times where it is rubbing against the chainring and bottom bracket area. Solved that with a zip tie, just zip tied the brake hose and the shift housing like together to just keep them tighter. So far that has solved the issue. I should probably do a bolt check, but I did that after like the first couple of rides. Nothing was coming loose. Yeah, so far, tidy little unit, well, big unit. Definitely a big bike, and where I live here in Boise, Idaho, like the foothill trails, anything over 130 is, I'd say, too much for around here. Kind of a hot take, but there's not really trails that demand more than 130 mil. I have the most fun on either a gravel bike or a 120 to 130 mil bike. So this is definitely overkill, but it's still been a ton of fun, which I think is cool. Like it kind of speaks to the versatility of the bike. For $2,999 US, you can get a frame and a shock for this bike. This build is the Fox suspension package. So 38 up front, X2 in the rear, and gets SRAM Maven base brakes, Eagle 90 drivetrain, and I have the Stinner Stoic, they're like in-house component brand, they're carbon wheels laced to DT Swiss 350 hubs. So yeah, that build comes in at, I believe it's $5,100 US, and for a US made steel and alloy like enduro bike, I'd say that is a pretty attainable price point. It doesn't feel like a super bespoke like bike that you want to baby. It's clearly designed to be ridden. It's like powder coated frame, steel and alloy made to smash stuff, and that it does. So far, pretty good, and it's just got me excited to take it to some areas that are better suited for a bike in this travel category. It's kind of brutal riding it here. These trails are very mellow, very flat, very pedally. It's not a bike that loves to ride flat, pedally stuff. Although it does do it fine. I guess it's all mindset. PMA, baby. Stinner Romero LT.
Sorry. No, just me. I'm so sorry.
Whew. I did not see her.